Everyone to please find a seat so we can get started. We can't get finished until we get started.
Does somebody want this up here?
Okay, here. Okay. What's the number? 72. 3? 72. I'd like to call the annual meeting of Messiah Lutheran Church, Evangelical Lutheran Church, to order. There are 73 voting members present. We need to have a quorum, which we do. We have 10%. So I declare that there is a quorum and that this meeting will be an official meeting of Messiah Evangelical Lutheran Church. Let's open with a prayer by Pastor while he's checking.
This is working. What a great morning so far. What a great weekend we've had. And some of you are going to be excited for what happens later today. But let's keep our focus here and we can get to that events for this afternoon faster. Let us pray. Gracious God, as we gather, we give you thanks for faces new and old, for the visitors this day from our past, and those who are reconnecting with us. We are grateful. For our meeting now, may your Spirit guide us throughout the importance of the business that we do. Even though the church isn't a business, there are things we need to be about. May you hear these reports, and may you see the numbers and help us to live out your calling to us. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Let me first say, this is the first annual meeting that I've been to in 15 years. So forgive me if I don't do it the way you've all been doing it in the past. But part of being a church member is to forgive, so I'm asking your forgiveness on any mistake that I make. Thank you. Okay. Our first mistake was we couldn't find the minutes from last year. So you should have received a handout of the minutes from 2024. It'd be 2025 meeting, but it was for the year 2024. Yeah.
Either one.
We were going through, among other things, interim secretaries, and so it got difficult. So those are the minutes. I will give you a few moments to at least glance over them. Is there a motion to accept the minutes? Darren? Is there a second? Sue? Rob? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. The next section in your packet would be the annual reports. We're not going to read those, but I would like to acknowledge the fact that they are there, and if you do have any questions, there is the pastor's report.
There's a date wrong on it. Maybe it's my dreams for this year, I don't know.
Under the president's report, there is a typographical error. I apologize to the rebuilding committee if you read this and have been angry at me ever since you read it. But the last paragraph should read, "Finally, thank you to the rebuilding committee. In many ways, your tireless work has gone unnoticed, but has never been appreciated." That should have been unappreciated. So for the second time, I ask the rebuilding committee to forgive me for that mistake. But hearing you all laugh, I probably shouldn't have said anything. I could have gotten away with it. Is that a good church member to try to hide stuff? Vice President's report. Kent, where are you now? Okay. Stewardship. You go. COC, Bob, you okay? Anybody? Worship and music? Thank you. Building committee, Mark, Nathan, anything? Hugh, do you have anything to say about the Boy Scouts?
Just thank you.
Other than Vice President? Annual, the small groups? Okay, worship and music, Dave? I don't know where you're all moving to. Oh, you're okay? Yeah. Okay. Do you, the congregation, have any questions then on anything of the reports? This was a struggle year because of a number of openings, but the committees continued to work really well. I'm really proud of them. So if there is no other questions, then I'm going to add, Nathan. Okay, Anna Circle, anything? If there are none, then I'm going to ask there be a motion to accept the annual reports as written. Carmela, Byrne, and second, Katie. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Are we going to this night? Yeah, okay. Do you want this?
All right. Thank you all for your generosity. What we've been doing is pretty remarkable. You want to go to the next one? One thing we realize is we have opportunity to kind of give people more updates as to where we're at. So we reformatted. Thank you, Karen, for making this slide legible. We have the first section. You'll see more itemized things in your final statement versus what you've been seeing. There are many different things that have been going on, as you know, and we're trying to account for all those things kind of individually. So you'll probably see a long list at times. Number 2 is where the pledge is. The pledge is there. It shows the pledge amount. It also shows kind of where we're at with that. I'm getting older and I forget things, so that kind of helps. Also, there's, through some folks figuring out how our software works, I can send text to the finance folks, and they can put a little blurb in the same statement. So that's the same idea, trying to make sure everybody knows where we're at. And it is mailed quarterly, so that instead of everything coming at the last minute, we kind of have a sense throughout the year what's going on. Any questions? Thanks again for all your generosity. Yes, Bill?
Where are we as of now?
All right, next slide.
Total amount
Yeah.
pledged and other donations, total amount potentially coming in.
Great lead in. So thanks again for the generosity. We are, what money we have thus far amounts to $173,517. We still have a ways to go with our getting to our goal. But as you can see, with our pledged amount over the next 2 years and a little bit, we're over 80%, which is pretty amazing. Can we give ourselves a round of applause?
Can't hear you online.
He's like Vanna. Yeah. You look very nice. So the bottom there is donations. We've also been, thanks to the finance folks being very diligent here, we've also been able to get dividends and interest on this money that we've been raising. So that's the bottom section. Through fundraising, we've raised $10,000. Those things will continue to go on. Pledges fulfilled, we already have over $100,000. And then, like I said, with the remaining funds, where we have over the next 2+ years, 114,272. So that is very remarkable. This is not something that every church takes on, and I'm very proud of us. That's that one. Any questions? Thank you, Bill. Any other questions? Yes, Sheila.
I would just like to thank Nathan. He's really stepped out of his comfort zone to get up here and talk to us all the time. And he's taken on so many events. So thank you.
Any questions on this one? Yeah, Carol. Comment?
Yeah, and you can say this. If you haven't pledged, you still can pledge.
Yes, good point. So right now we have 41 pledges, and you can see it's really awesome. But if you haven't pledged, please consider pledging. We also accept donations that aren't pledges, but the pledges help us understand what's coming. So if there's a way you could do that, that would be great. Any other questions? All right. Next slide. I need my notes for this one, I think. I can, yeah, so here.
I have been asked to stand close to the screen, but not in front of the screen so that you can be online.
Right here?
Anybody who's speaking.
Right here. This is where
We are putting up the slide deck, so I don't.
slide deck will also be up.
Oh, we're using that.
So one thing we need to figure out is we've been raising this money. There's $220,000 that's already committed to things we've approved as a congregation. We had a bold goal, and again, I'm so proud. Thank you so much for your generosity. There's this money that we may raise, and we're trying to figure out, as council, should we be deciding how we should spend this money? should we come to you with everything? Like, we have aging heaters. At least the one we had all sorts of trouble with. We were able to get a motor rebuilt, but it might be time to replace that heater. What are your preferences? The motion, I guess, is that you would entrust the council to make wise decisions with this, but we need to feel good about this as a congregation. Yes, Carol?
So if we don't approve this, we will have to have multiple meetings. Every time we need to do something, we'll
Yeah.
have to have a congregation.
So Carol just brought up the fact that what's being proposed is probably the most time efficient. In order to do it the other way, kind of piecemeal, we would need a congregational meeting every time we need to spend some money. Here's Bob.
According to the Constitution, every time the council would spend over 5% of the annual budget. So roughly, anything over $30,000, we would have to come and have a special congregational meeting to have it approved. That obviously takes a lot of time to get that done from beginning to end. So this was to try to, if you trust council, to give them some flexibility in keeping things moving.
Okay.
I make a motion for council to make decisions to use the capital campaign funds.
So
Yeah,
Carol,
that's the motion that's up there, right? So
Yeah.
if you're making a motion, you make the motion, you want to make the motion of what's printed up there.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Use of capital campaign funds.
so, and Kathleen had a question at one point, sorry.
I was just going to remind people that this also requires quorums. It does require actually
Yeah.
certain applications.
Yeah, so a congregational meeting, to have a congregational meeting, you are required to have a quorum. Yes, Andy?
Just a question and possible comment about may not incur any debt. Do we still have a line of credit as was approved last? Yes.
So what Andy just said is, as this states, not incurring debt. Sorry, I can't read fast enough. We do have a line of credit, I believe. Is that right? So there is a potential that we could, yes.
So if you recall when we voted last year on the elevator, the narthex and those things, there were provisions in there for those items that we could dip in. It was up to council discretion how we paid for it if we didn't have the funds, because obviously the building has to keep going, right? So there is that piece. This is for anything outside of those things that were already approved. What this motion says is that we won't incur debt for any of these additional things. So, as an example, we want to repave the driveway. Well, we don't have the funds in the capital campaign fund to pay for that, therefore we cannot yet do it, as an example.
I would just recommend maybe you say council may not incur any new debt. Because technically, you have a liability against the road. Sorry.
Okay. So, may not incur any, Sheila, if you want to just add in new.
So we don't have any debt right now. We have the ability to incur debt, but we have not incurred any.
Fair enough, but it just depends on how you want to treat it. I just wouldn't want to, since you have that provision, I wouldn't want to be restricted from using it because that says you won't incur any debt.
Yeah.
So is the line of credit new debt, old debt, or not debt?
That's old.
It's a lot, it's technically a liability against the books. It's not debt until you draw against it. But that would tell you, I mean, read in its most literal form will tell you you can't use it.
Okay.
How about not any debt, not previously approved?
Yeah, I'd
Does
say
that cover?
beyond what's currently been approved, not, yeah. In other words, we can't overspend the capital campaign fund. That's really what it's coming down to. So that's the motion. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a second. Discussion.
Did you just read the motion?
Sure. It says, congregation approves council committing and using capital campaign fund resources to fund capital improvements as prioritized by the Messiah Council without the need for the congregation to individually approve each expenditure. Council may not incur any additional debt beyond what has already been approved, but only utilize funds already accumulated in the capital campaign fund as part of this motion. Bill?
One of the things we talked about with regard to other capital items that we're potentially going to be fundraising for was the roof. So if we're going to have council, decide what are the priorities, I would like to see that the roof be one of them, as opposed to come back in 3 years and say, okay, we need $150,000 for a new roof, and then we're in the same situation again of trying to raise a significant amount of money. I just would like to see that council's aware of that necessity and puts that near the top of the list of other capital spending.
Personally, I happen to agree with you, but that's what council, under this motion, that's what council would be looking at, is what are all those things that we need to get done that fall under capital improvements, keeping in mind there are things that we're already committed for, those are at the top of the list. And then those things that are after that is where council then, based on this motion, would prioritize. And all of you are welcome to make council aware of your opinion on what should be prioritized, but that's what this motion is saying. Oh, the three things that were already approved was the elevator, the full elevator, the north narthex expansion, and the movable walls. That's what was approved last year at the congregational meeting. So anything over that has not yet been approved. So any of the things that we've been talking about, whether it's the roof or whatever, or HVAC systems, those kinds of things, none of that has yet been approved. That's what this motion basically says. Council's allowed to use capital campaign resources to fund those other things as long as there's money available.
And I'm reading this sentence again, this second sentence again, and wondering, so the intent is that council may. So my understanding is that that second sentence means that council can approve and go forward with funds that have already been accumulated and incur any additional debt that has already been approved. Is that council may, it says council may not incur any additional debt beyond what's been approved.
Additional debt beyond, so those things that we've already approved are already approved. We owe that, essentially we owe that money. So the elevator, the north narthex, the walls, that's already been approved. Part of those, if you can remember back that far, was there was some council discretion there on how we got those funds. We may temporarily use a line of credit if we don't have the money for those, right? To keep the project and everything moving.
I guess I'm just confused by the but only utilize funds already accumulated in the capital campaign. It's both and, isn't it? So it's council may not incur any additional debt beyond what has already been approved, along with funds already accumulated in the capital campaign, together with.
I see what you're saying.
Or as well as.
Council may not incur any additional debt beyond what has already been approved, or do we simplify it and just say, or has been accumulated in the capital campaign fund? Right?
Or funds already accumulated.
Or funds already accumulated in the capital.
So we've approved some debt and we've accumulated some funds. And so we have access to both.
You may not need the second part.
Yeah, I could hear.
You just affirm that it's can't carry the vision that the first part takes care of the second part.
So what you're saying is leave that part together with funds already accumulated with that?
Make that screen a little larger,
Well, I wanna, I
She's
will.
in edit mode right now.
but she can zoom out a little bit.
So as it reads right now, the modified motion would be congregation approves council committing and using campaign fund resources to fund capital improvements as prioritized by the Messiah Council without the need for the congregation to individually approve each expenditure. Council may not incur any additional debt beyond what has already been approved.
I feel like we were kind of mixing metaphors because the motion is about committing and using the campaign fund. And we're kind of also saying, oh yeah, and this debt too.
Well, what I was trying to do in here was make sure that it's very clear that just because we have a capital campaign fund doesn't mean that, oh, we don't have the money yet, so we're gonna go in debt, right? So that's why I was putting a constraint. If the congregation is going to say council has discretion, great. Council decides we're gonna buy $1 million property as part of capital campaign fund. Well, no, right? So that's what I was trying to do with that, is that this is not any approval by the congregation to allow an increase in debt. Bill?
I think if you add to the very end of that sentence, already has been approved for, and then list those three items that we had approved the debt potentially being used for, the narthex, the elevator, and the moving walls.
That was my question. Was the debt that was approved specifically for those three things? Or only for capital improvements more general?
Well, the debt that we incurred last year was specific to each motion because we talked about how we were funding each motion, right? So that's already been approved and we will honor that approval. This is basically for anything in addition to those items that we approved last year.
That debt then has to be approved then, because it's that debt
It
was
was
not
already
covered.
approved. It was approved last year.
Right, for those three things.
Yeah.
Any new debt is not covered under that old motion.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. That's exactly what I'm trying, yeah.
Does the change?
Okay, so the modified motion now is congregation approves council committing and using campaign fund resources to fund capital improvements as prioritized by the Messiah Council without the need for the congregation to individually approve each expenditure. Council may not incur any additional debt beyond what has already been approved for the elevator, narthex expansion, and movable walls in the education building. Okay, so we have that motion. Can I get a second for the? Did you get that, Kathleen? Any other discussions on the modified motion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so for a rebuilding update, there really isn't that much of an update. You all can see what's going on. Pastor said the walls should start going up next week, or this week. Some of the delays have been weather until we get, walls and under roof. Holden's kind of, hit by the weather. From a FEMA perspective, FEMA is reviewing our changes. They have not yet approved the expansion of the narthex and even to the south, that additional for ADA reasons. They did come back and ask for additional information, which Holden is putting together, and hopefully we'll be submitting that this week so FEMA can continue their review of that process to give us that. And at this stage, I have no Exxon Mobil update as far as what's happening with them. Any questions on rebuilding? I know you're tired of hearing about it. Okay.
I read a rebuilding committee report from last year, and the last sentence said, "and soon it will be completed." And probably the last sentence on today will be, "and soon it will be completed." This is going to be the soon. It's going to be done. You can pray for that. Okay. Carol? Carol, Sheila?
Okay, here's our budget for next year. If we can just kind of go, oh, sorry, I should know better. If we can just kind of slowly, Sheila, just kind of go through it. You also have a copy of it, just kind of slowly. And if you see something that you would like to discuss, please raise your hand. What? Oh. I just want us to go, just if Sheila, you can just kind of go, I don't want to read through it. I just want you to slowly go up so that people can view it. And then if you see something that you're concerned about, please raise your hand and we can discuss it. I do want to make a note. If you can see that our budget, our proposed budget is actually less than last year's proposed budget. Do we have any questions? Any concerns? Okay. Okay, so the question is Stephen Ministries still exist? As of this moment, no, but we have it saved on the budget just in case something it starts to happen again. Right, because we haven't done it in a while, and so we want to keep it on the budget just in case, and if it does pick up, we will definitely increase the amount next year, but we just wanted to keep it on there just in case. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Can somebody make a motion? I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2025 Messiah Lutheran budget. Reiner. Any questions? I think Nathan was just seconding it. All right,
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Thank you.
You can go to the next one. If you recall, last year, we did some adjustments on the terms for council members because we kind of got out of sync and we ended up having the president, vice president changing at the same time, all of those kinds of things. So we split things into three groups, a group A, B, and C. This cycle for this year is really for group B is the group that's up for, those slots are up for election. I made a couple of notes here. One, a single asterisk, those are the ones that are up on their normal cycle. The ones with double asterisks are those that are out of cycle, but they're right now being served by an appointee from council, and our Constitution requires that if somebody is appointed, at the next annual congregation meeting, they actually have to be formally elected to that term. So that's what this is. The next slide is where we stand today as far as who's serving in that position and if they were serving by appointment or not. The last column is a current slate of candidates for those positions. At this time, I would like to open the floor to any other nominations for these positions or others. These are just positions that council is aware that people have said they would volunteer for. So at this point, I open up to the floor if there are any other nominations for one of the vacant positions or one of the other positions that's being elected for this, which is all of these in this column that aren't NA. So the only one not being elected are these two. So at this point, are there any other volunteers or nominations for consideration for the positions that are being elected today? Seeing none, then we will move forward. Okay. All right, so introducing Bob.
Hi, I'm Bob Sterner. Frank Stearns is going to be, you stand up in front every Sunday, you can. Kathleen Groft, you want to take the computer with you? Kathleen is on council, now she's switching over. We do have a vacancy in finance. Bob McDade is taking over for property from Mark. Mark, thank you very much for filling in for Nathan. Mark graciously took over while Nathan changed his uniform to stewardship. So again, Mark has been a very valuable member of property for a long time. Fellowship, we still have vacant.
Bob, could you slide over to your right, please? Bob Sterner.
Catherine Mitchell, ministry. Catherine's been worshiping with us for a year or two. Bob McMonigal. He was by appointment, so you need to be voted upon. Nathan, you're by appointment, so. Kim Gamble. When Kim is here with her family, they fill up 2 pews. Yeah. So this is really good to have him on because that's 2 less pews we have to fill. And I just lost the last line. Oh, young adult. Tom, could you lose about 40 years? I would really like you to be on church council. We don't have.
Aaron would only have to lose 9 because you have to be under 30.
I guess we are going to be unfilled in this position for a while until we find somebody who's between 18 and 25. We do have 2 youth. Hayden and Katie aren't here, right? We have 2 youth who have been coming for the last 3 or 4 months. The problem with that is that we always elect them and then they go to college. That's a problem. Katie, Hayden Barry and Katie Vaughn have been coming and will continue to come up until they leave to go to college. So I probably shouldn't do this.
So I want to thank everybody for volunteering. At this point, I make a motion that we approve the election of all those that are listed in the last column for council. Do I have a second? Any? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much.
Let's get a picture of them and the council that's present. So Sheila, so we got at least for our records. But we can applaud them now.
All right, we're going to now transition to some of the work that we've been doing around the cohorts and the surveys. And you want to say?
Back at the last annual meeting, we asked this group to meet. We meaning the congregation, we. And they did an incredible job. Way beyond what could be listed and said, what they have done. Not only Andy, but the cohorts who worked with him, the meetings that were held, was just, the information was just phenomenal. And we would be remiss if we didn't ask Andy to briefly tell us what happened and then how we're going to go about doing something about it.
I hope this is appropriate before we get into that. Didn't want it to go unnoticed. Kent has just been relieved of his position as vice president. And sorry? No. Sorry. Kent, so well-deserved recognition. I know a lot of you guys are thinking, I thought we were finished with Andy last year. Trust me, so did I. And first and foremost, most importantly, technically Zeke Calhoun died by heart attack. But if there was any ne'er-do-wells, it was Slick O'Leary back there in the back. Sorry, it's a reference to last night for those who were not in attendance. I'm going to do this really, really quickly. One of the things that we talked about last year is taking this full year to be able to really look at who we are as a church and examine, take a step back. It hadn't been done in a long time, is really take a look at who we are, what do we believe, and where are we going? Those are the three fundamental questions, I think, guiding some of this work. The whole idea is, I think, what we saw and heard when we did both a survey and the cohort process. I think probably most of you participated in a cohort meeting or discussion at one point in time, was one thing that was validated right off the bat, which was there was question of what does it mean to be a member of Messiah? Who are we? And through that process, I think we were able to help really define not only who we are and what we stand for, but what is it that we do, and what should be the benefit to the congregation and to the community at large. And you'll hear as Kent gets up and hear the ending of this, which is the most important part, is where are we going, and where do you as we all as members of the congregation fit into that. So one of the things through all the, and I encourage everybody, if you haven't had an opportunity to read what's in the annual report, or I know there was a link online, please do. It gives a little bit more information. But one of the things we did was, as we compiled all the information, we looked at it from a standpoint of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I'm not going to go through all of these individually, but strengths are things that we control that we're good at. Weaknesses or strength opportunities are those things that are not necessarily things we have control of as a congregation, but they're happening around us that we need to take account, do something about. Weaknesses are things that are within our control, but we're probably not where we need to be. And then threats are the external. So if you think of those things. So just to give a quick example, if we go back to this one slide back up. So if you look at the strengths, we have a strong core of members loyal to Messiah. So that is absolutely true. How do we use that to our benefit? How can we make that more a part of where we're going into the future? And if we think about opportunities, the borough is investing in a pedestrian community. That's something that we don't necessarily have control over, but it could be extremely beneficial given the benefit, where we stand geographically as a church. And then under weaknesses, we've had this inability to fill congregational council positions. Well, that is a weakness that's within our control, and there's things that we ought to marshal around to be able to do something about. And then the threats, there's a lot of them there, but you get the idea. So we took all of this input, put it into this structure, and then started to say, okay, what does that mean as we move forward? And the first thing that we did is look at our mission. This triangle, it's hard to see up here probably on the screen, but if you look at it in your book, this is the construct you should keep in mind for all the work that went on. We said, what are our core beliefs? What is the mission? Why we exist? On top of that it says making disciples. Who are we becoming? So that really kind of forms the foundation of who we are as a church. And then the vision, mission goals, organizational strategy, and structure are our direction. Where is it that we are actually going? And the last and most important part is the action step, which is our ministry priorities that flow up through all of those decisions into what does it mean to you. And the you are here is the most important part of this triangle. We have to, we as a church, the council as a leadership foundation have to clearly define where it is we're going so that you know when you're involved in something, in any kind of activity that supports the church, how does it support one of the, our mission or any one of the goals that flows from our mission. So That I think is an important structure to kind of understand how this was all set up. Next slide. And also, I'm going to stop with the mission and then turn it over to Kent. But one of the things that really came clear out of at least the initial work we had was people, our strong core members, who make up the bulk of our congregation right now, all had an attachment or an understanding of what were the 5 purposes. You know, at some point in time, we were talking about 5 purposes, but it seemed as though they faded. They faded, they didn't become a part of our everyday language. We weren't quite sure what we were doing with them, but people who remember and understand what the purposes are about really did have a strong affinity to them. And they felt like that was still driving the underpinnings of our church. So as we looked at all of the information that was impacting our mission, and we actually had a list of 50 different potential mission statements. What we actually came back to is our current mission statement, growing God's family. That still represents what we stand for as a congregation, and it's still relevant given all of the information that we have. What was potentially missing was, okay, but now what does that mean? It used to have context in the 5 purposes, and it still does by our Constitution and our bylaws, but we wanted to be able to provide a little bit more context and clarity on what does it mean to be a family. So with a couple of brilliant ideas, we turned family into the mnemonic: fellowship, adoration, ministry, inviting, learning and teaching, and youth. So you as a member of the congregation, you don't have to remember it. If you can't remember every one of the 5 purposes, if you can take family and turn that into what do we stand for, it does actually conveniently match up with the purposes, as you can see in the second column. But that is our mission. Growing God's family still works, still matters. But I think going forward from here is how do we take that and turn that into our actions. So I'll turn that over to Ken.
So from the mission, then we move into what's the vision. So if you think about the vision is what happens because we live the mission. Because we have this mission, what does that mean? So I'm not going to go through all these, but what does success look like? So if you take that family mnemonic and you start looking at this, what does success mean for fellowship, for adoration, those kinds of things? So this is just putting more verbiage around that mnemonic so that you have something to fall back on, something to guide what it is that we're trying to do. Any questions on this? So the mission, why we exist. The vision is what happens because we live that mission, and then we move into goals. But just wanted to let people, does this all make sense? It's in the packet that was out there. Page 16. Okay, next slide. So now we go into the goals, and no, I'm not going to read all of these goals. So the cohorts and council had discussions around that top box. You are here, right? What do we do? What goals do we set so that we can move forward? The important thing is these aren't pastors' goals. These aren't council's goals. These are congregational goals, every one of you. So these goals that we've laid out here, what we expect is, as members of the congregation, everybody will be working towards these goals, right? So we'll come up with things. Nathan held up the ministry sheet at one point in time, right? Ministry, those are some of the things. But if you think about the goals, we can have one activity that accomplishes many goals. So I'll use the example of, we had Santa here, okay? Did we miss an opportunity by not saying, hey, come to our Growing God's Way Sunday school? Right? We need more youth. Well, how do we get more youth other than leveraging some of the activities. So that's where the goals become important, because you can start looking at activities that happen, things that we do, and figure out how can we support each other. All these goals can support all of the 5 purposes, right? So what's happening in each of those areas to support these goals? So you as a church member, what we're really looking for is looking at these goals. How can you contribute to those goals? What is it that you can do? It doesn't have to be on a ministry sheet. You can come up with something totally on your own, right? One of the things that came out of the Santa thing is we have a lot of Spanish-speaking people in the area. Do we do something with Spanish? Well, I can't speak Spanish, right? But maybe somebody can, right? So that's how we use the goals to move forward. And each of you should be looking at that to say, what can I do to support those goals? We do owe a special round of thanks to the folks that ran the cohorts. That was fairly time intensive to run. So if any of them are here, if you could stand up. Darren? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Very well done. Thanks.
Hi, because I'm new here, I'm not familiar with the cohorts are, so I'm trying to get to know what everybody's doing and everything. And I just want to say I love being here. I love Messiah. I didn't get my information into,
The question is,
yeah,
what are
to Nathan
cohort?
yet, but it's all written down, but it's so jumbled up, I don't know how to put it all together. But yeah, could you just explain what the cohort leaders are? Who they are? Thank you.
The cohort meetings were held this past year after these people, the congregation was divided into these 8 parts, and you were invited to come to a cohort meeting. And at those cohort meetings, there was an agenda that was laid out, and the cohort meetings that I were in, the people were it was very easy to talk, it was very easy to express yourself, and the leaders took the information down, reported back to Andy in meetings, and all this that was generated through the cohorts, meeting with their large group and then breaking it down. And then we came back for a second and a third time, at least, where other things were discussed. So the entire congregation was invited to a cohort meeting. Nita, you might not have been in my group, and Nathan might have been in a different group, but we were all at cohort meetings. It's coming.
I had a question on page 18.
About?
The, under ministry, leverage member directory program. What does that mean?
Here's a case of passing the baton.
So one of the things is understanding who's in the congregation, what their skill sets are, right? What interests they have, and that type of thing. So one of the things that we wanted to look at was how do we leverage the tools that we have, the knowledge that we have, the ability for people to let us know what their interests are, and all of that to be able to, expand what we're doing. So as an example, that's a goal, right? So how would you help with that goal? Well, you're the one that kind of leverages that software along with Pastor and some others. So how can we leverage that more? That gets into your individual. How are you going to contribute to that? Just an example.
Or maybe we have a lot of Spanish-speaking people who came to the Santa gathering. Next year when we have it, you might be invited to be an elf. You got it? Did you get that? There's a lot of hidden talent. Yeah, I've known Frank Rossi for a lot of years, but I had no clue what he actually did. And now he's doing it all for volunteer here with the building campaign. There are a lot of people that we don't exactly know what their talents are that would be good to know. 3 people here reminded me that I should thank Kent. So I have thanked Kent many times, almost every time we meet. But again, Kent, on behalf of the congregation, thank you for what you have done, but what you still have to do. I have said a couple of times that my goal is to get to September. And I don't wish my life away, but it is going to be a precious 6 months of a lot of people chipping in. And seriously, Frank is here almost every day as the general contractor. What do you call that? Ad hoc, or someone who's here doing everything and not getting paid anything for it other than thank you. The nominating committee, Hugh, Denise isn't here, is she? Is Denise Stearns, is she? She might be online. Oh, okay. The Hugh and Denise Stern, the time and effort for a nominating committee is invaluable to us. And we, other than that young adult, we might be down to only having 1 opening. And that's awesome. And we should really be able to have somebody be willing to volunteer to do that, or to help out with it anyway. One of the things that I have said, and it was last night as an example, that capital campaign committee, God, I don't know how many there are, but they just keep showing up, different ones every time. There's something to do, and it's amazing. Then it came time to clean up last night, and holy cow, within 10 minutes, it was all cleaned up. Most of it, probably not all of it. We could probably still use some help in the fellowship hall to get things put away. But I use the word family. It was up there. We are family. In my family, we have unconditional love. And I would hope the same for us here in this family. If he screws up, forgive him. If on the way that you don't agree with everything, sometimes Kent says some things that, I don't know, I want to buy that. And sometimes I say things and I'm pretty sure Kent didn't buy into that. But it's still, we are still church members. And let's keep that in mind. And you were telling me that was the last slide. Yeah. Can I do it? Okay. Is there anything from the congregation?
Any other comments for today? I'd like the council to stand up. All the council that are returning or are been going on today. In the past 5 years, we really haven't done a installation per se. We just said you're elected, welcome. But this is kind of, since we do things in the church a little differently, I don't ask you to put your hands on Bibles right now, but there is a hymnal in front of you. No. We give you thanks for your gifts today. We give thanks for your willingness to serve. In baptism, we are welcomed to the body of Christ and sent to share in the mission of God. We rejoice now that these sisters and brothers will lead us in our common life and our mutual mission as a congregation. From 1 Corinthians, there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit, varieties of services, but the same Lord. And there are varieties of activities, but it's all the same God who activates all of them in everyone. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. You have been elected to positions of leadership and trust in this congregation. You are to see that the words and deeds of the household of faith bear witness to God, who gathers us into one together with the whole church. You are to seek to involve all members of this congregation in worship, learning, witness, service, and support, so that the mission of Christ is carried out in this congregation, in the wider church, and in this community and the whole world. You are to be faithful in your specific area of serving, that the Spirit who empowers you may be glorified. And you are to be examples of faith, active in love, fostering peace, harmony, and mutual understanding in this congregation. On behalf of you, your sisters and brothers in Christ here today, I ask you, our council, will you accept the faith and faithfully carry out the duties of your offices and positions to which you have been elected and called? If so, answer, I will, and I ask God to help me. People of God, and some of you can turn around and look back at the others here. People of God, I ask you, will you support these, your elected leaders, and will you share in the mutual ministry that Christ has given to all who are baptized? If so, answer, we will, and we ask God to help us. We will, and we ask God to help us. I now declare you the installed officers and council members of this congregation of Messiah Evangelical Lutheran Church. May Almighty God bless you and direct your days and your deeds in peace, and that you may be faithful servants of Christ. And the people of God said, Amen.
And as we end every council meeting, this is something that's special for me, but this is how as you go on your way, may Christ be with you. May he go before you to guide you. May he go behind you to encourage you. May he go beside you to befriend you. May he go above you to look over you. And may he go within you to give you peace. Amen.
Let us go in peace and serve the